It is the young Croatian Protoss player, Goblin. So you would say the maps need bigger ramps for the Reapers, basically. That cannot be blocked by this.
Oh, hell no. Then I die more to playing Stalkers, cats. That's no, we can't.
What do you want? What do you want, Nate?
Oh, I've had a craving for chicken wings, so I'm just trying to bring out some of the spice myself today. That's all. Really fast third command center. So this has been something that MarineLorD has done, by the way, a couple of times. He's been on the really fast third CC train, and with a couple Hellions to open, that is nice. But the Phoenix are very good at neutralizing Hellions in the early game, right? You pick one up, and then if there's only one Hellion, the Adepts can handle it without too much trouble because it takes 3 shots for a Hellion to kill a probe. And if you only have one Hellion and you somehow lose 13 probes to one Hellion, that's more on the Protoss's fault than it is anything great that Terran did, because that just should not happen when he's got 2 Stalkers and an Adept and a Phoenix.
Yeah, it would be very difficult to make happen. If you're the Protoss, you would have to kind of move those units away and not bring them back or something of the sorts. The Phoenixes are also extra cool, Nate, because they're good against like drops in general. Widow Mine drops are going to be a lot weaker, and we see that Goblin is anticipating the potential for that. Now, as he sees the Hellions at the front, maybe considering moving forward. But yeah, Liberators, drops, all going to be responded to if Goblin manages to be in position.
Yeah, so this is a nice, straightforward opening out of Goblin that gives him a lot of utility, gets the Reaper kill there. I mean, the obvious other thing, by the way, that is worth pointing out is you still only have so many pylons in the early game as a toss. So if the Reaper goes up there, it's not uncommon for Protoss to still put tech there. Otherwise, you might be squeezing out a pylon really fast, or you don't have one at your natural, which makes you a little more vulnerable to getting hit by an early attack. So it's not like it's cheap or free to do that, because lots of Terrans will still eventually push that position, and you have key tech at your ramp. But this is quite a big loss if that dies. You need to get some SCVs underneath.
Oh, and with the 4th Phoenix arriving, it's gonna be just enough to pick off the Cyclone. It's gonna be to the loss of a lot of HP on this Phoenix. Do you feel happy about that? Or do you not care at all that the Phoenixes are bruised as a Terran player, Nate?
No, I think that's a really good pickup for Goblin. He kills the Cyclone, which is the same cost. It's the same cost as a Phoenix, except it takes a while to build, and you can't build them quite as quickly with that Chrono Boost, right? And the Terran doesn't want to build a bunch of Cyclones, so when you kill those types of units, it's not the unit you want to be replacing, cats. I feel like when it comes to any big fight, the Phoenix will just die if they're not being microed or pulled away anyway. So them being weak it's almost like inconsequential unless there's random Widow Mines put around the map by MarineLorD, which, with how slow this game seems to be starting for him, he's a very greedy build. I don't know that that's on the table anytime soon, as we're just getting the E-base, right? We're pretty far for an armory. Good harass by Goblin, though, and he gets the scout. All of this is giving him information at the same time.
Yeah, very, very good. I mean, you can be really happy if none of your Phoenixes have died and they are all low on energy, and you're using that energy as it pops, right? It's max efficiency on the side of Goblin, finding space to do damage with this Phoenix so far. And MarineLorD unable to answer. Goblin is now taking a 3rd base. MarineLorD already has his 3rd back at home. But yeah, I quite like the Croatian's position here so far, Nate.
You got to love this map control, and he's going into the air attack as well. So, I mean, he did get Warp Gate, but it's the Roddy build question that we kind of brought up earlier. I'm like, well, that's it. He's going Phoenix into Colossi. He's going to have a lot of expensive tech units that are going to generate a tremendous amount of value. It's not quite a meaty army, but it doesn't necessarily need to be if he has all the pieces in place, right? Maybe eventually going into some disruptors, or maybe his game plan is to just go mega air late game, which is very hard to pull off against Bioterran, but it's actually not that bad if you can get there.
All right. What would be, I mean, have you seen it much? How would you get there? I think it's most likely that we're seeing the Phoenixes upgraded, but yeah, it's definitely a thing to, like, carriers would be really strong, right? If you can get there.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, if you get enough of them, like a lot of people don't realize it, but like when you're trying to balance the army composition, if you have like some disruptors or colossi with your carriers, it's not as simple as, oh, I'm just going to build a bunch of Marines and A-move you because interceptors are air units. It's like No, if you have too many Marauders, not like you can actually have. It's probably the most common thing is just not having enough Marines because your composition is too balanced around, you know, everything the Protoss has. Right? It makes sense that you want to have a varied comp. But at some point, when you're like, oh yeah, I can kill the 7 carriers with my 30 Marines. No, not when there's other units. No, you can't. Although we may
this
not
is
reach
a
that
great
point,
engagement.
He's getting the medevacs. He's getting tons of damage in. The Colossi shaving off a bunch of Marines. MarineLorD can't really, he can't really step forward.
Yeah, he has to stim to get out. Now, the one saving grace for MarineLorD, though, I would say, in spite of taking so much damage early from the Phoenix, like who picked off not just the Cyclone, but a few SCVs as well, is that he has managed to keep up in terms of SCV production. He's actually ahead of Goblin. And I have to imagine this is, you know, wrong or bad of Goblin to some degree. He must have missed a few production cycles because he has really not taken any economic damage, but he's kept consistently behind MarineLorD on that front.
Yeah, well, that's just the benefit of the Turbo CC, right? Like he got that third command center at such a timing that if Goblin was doing any sort of like all-in or cheese or whatever, he probably would have just straight up murdered MarineLorD. But the benefit for the Terran is you get away with that and you end up being a pretty rich boy. But I still don't think that he's really done too much yet to Goblin. There's some harass in the northwest, but I guess it doesn't matter if he doesn't harass them if they're both on the same number of bases. It's a very weird type of Terran versus Protoss to watch. He's like, I'm going to outgreed the Protoss, and then it won't matter if I can't, you know, harass the third or do anything to a fourth. But there is no fourth, right? It hasn't even started yet. Meanwhile, the Terran's fourth is about to finish, and then you get a planetary, and as long as you're out on the map, keeping the Protoss from crossing to your side, you're feeling pretty good. He just needs to make sure he gets that transition into Liberators and Ghosts going before a big push comes and hits him, because if you don't have, you know, those types of specialist units to lock down defensively, this is still a scary Protoss army no matter what way you look at it.
Yeah, not very many Marauders in the mix for the Terran player, so it's going to be difficult to get rid of this Colossi, as there is only one Viking out for MarineLorD, but Goblin's going to be forced to recall to deal with a double medevac drop. Recalls most of the Phoenixes to deal with the medevacs right away, as well as the Colossi, which are going to end up surviving, but hey, he really needed to punish something. I feel like, Nate, being out on the map, he had gained so much space, and MarineLorD kind of resetting that and going back to playing that game that you were talking about, where he's so ahead economically.
It's not a situation that we see very often, and this scares me because he's going for a Fleet Bacon and the extra Stargate. And if, like, just hypothetically speaking, if you're MarineLorD and you scan this and you're making insane amounts of money, this tells you that a tremendous amount of resources have been allocated in a specific place, which is not going to pay off for, you know, possibly up to 3 to 4 minutes, depending on when he wants to do whatever he's going to do. Maybe he's just going to build 2 Tempests and start to contain. I don't know. But the weakness of this is that, of course, MarineLorD has a fast mobile army. And if he can get on the map and get some damage done, he could possibly make a big push before that pays off. And he just won't have as big of an army because he's invested so much in his tech and infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think MarineLorD, regardless, is gonna want to trade, right? Like, he doesn't even know this information. He doesn't even need to know this information in order to say, I'm maxed out, I have an economic lead, I should look to trade right now. And that's exactly what he's looking to do out on the map right now. Now scanning diligently before moving up the ramp, whereas before he kind of just moved up the ramp and got sent backpacking. And now, I mean, this would be good trades for MarineLorD. But he's finding damage with his drop, so he's waiting, I think, for Goblin to react to that drop. A Zealot Warping is going to be enough, I think, to push it back.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the best things about playing this type of style for Goblin is that when these types of attacks come in, you're going to get the medevacs kills, right? You're going to be able to clean a lot of it up, but you can't just pick up and jump away with a boost like you would try to do with if you're just playing like a regular Bio versus Protoss that didn't have Phoenix. If they're just using Blink Stalkers, usually just try to run away from those. And that carrier count is going to start growing. Definitely think you got to start +2. There it is. The Phoenix are still pretty important for stopping the big potential drops. But this army from MarineLorD is no laughing matter. So Goblin needs to buy time. He needs to get a good Nova off, create a little bit of chaos, cause a distraction somehow. Because MarineLorD is rich, right? He's going up to 5 bases. He's going up to 5 bases. This isn't like a Terran that feels like he has to attack. This is a Terran that wants to attack because he knows that Protoss is trying to get a big, scary army, and he's going to go forward now. The Vikings kind of just attacking everything, which is not good. They're going to shoot at the interceptors, which makes them quite worthless. The carriers, with the Phoenix support, can take those down without too much trouble. So the carriers are all still alive. The Colossi are still alive. And the Phoenix are still alive. There's still a disruptor or two in there, too. Like, MarineLorD takes a pretty rough trade to kill really just the Nexus. I think the carrier count staying as high as it is, he has not lost any of his carriers, just 22 interceptors. That is definitely the best part of this, because carriers are going to be all about that tipping point, that snowball point, and it's very, very difficult, because like a very common trap that Terrans fall into is they just start trying to build a crap ton of Vikings to kill carriers, and it almost never works, because Vikings have no armor by default. They have to get very close to carriers, and that DPS that they have makes it really, really rough. But the other reason why this can be a mistake is you don't have the same level of medevac production, and MarineLorD's army is very hurt right now. It's unfortunate that he has a break, but you can't really do anything with this until he builds more medevacs and heals his army.
Yeah, definitely. There's also, of course, the Phoenix is offering buffer and kind of like helping fight those Vikings. So yeah, all of the army of MarineLorD is bruised. He has a lot of Marauders, kind of strangely has remaxed on a lot of Marauders, or maybe it's just the leftover Marauders, but they're not going to help much against carriers, Nate. And I'm glad that we started talking about the carriers earlier, because I think that Goblin is reaching that point where they're going to be super strong. With that said, it's very clear that where he has an army complexity advantage, the economic lead is clearly on MarineLorD's favor and has been for most of the game. So it's a pretty cool game where players are kind of, taking different leads in different departments.
Yeah, this game's taking an interesting turn, and MarineLorD's gonna get building armor. I like this a lot. Like if you end up doing, so there's a couple of things, right? We've seen some of these types of games play out before, and my thoughts on this, I think one of the bigger games was that Maru had a game where the Protoss ended up getting this big force. I'm not sure if that was against Parting, but you have to be really, really careful about the way that you end up trying to tackle this army. That's a good EMP.
Maybe the best I've ever seen, yeah. It's like every unit.
It's just, it takes a lot to get up into a position where you can really do something against this type of army, because the Phoenix and the Interceptors both mess with the AI of the Vikings. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is that Vikings, because they shoot projectiles, they'll overkill on units. Hitting one of the Colossi is very big, though. But as that Viking count goes down, you suddenly lose your ability to approach this, because what do we have? 8 carriers, only 27 Marines to deal with them? Is that enough when you have to also fight Colossi, Zealots, Disruptors? I'm not so sure. So that's kind of why I say it can be a bit of a trap, because you just start building a ton of Vikings, and they are just very fragile units. They'll die super fast in almost all of these fights unless you get the jump on your opponent, which is, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, and this is why I love the approach that MarineLorD is taking. And not so much this move, but rather strategically, he's going for nukes. And nukes are going to be really good for zoning tools, Nate. But, I mean, he needs to get in a position where the nuke is actually going to be able to zone out for the army. And he can secure bases and stuff like that and just trade with his army against the infrastructure of Goblin with those nukes. I think that's what MarineLorD's going to be looking for here. Would you agree?
Yeah, I don't hate the idea of going for the nukes. It can be a bit of a risk sometimes, right? Because they're not cheap. But as long as you're throwing them, at least for the static defenses, I think that's one of the most important things you can do. If there's a couple cannons, there's a shield battery or two, being able to at least blow those up if they pull the probes away is really nice. But I think I have my eye on that fusion core a little bit more, because I do believe if the Protoss gets this many carriers, like I said, I'm not gonna like make weird stuff up here, but like the Vikings are just generally not super great at dealing with this large of a big carrier force. You need to find an opportunity or a moment to try to switch into something like battle cruisers, and he does have the fusion core, but like it's just so hard to close it out with those units, because as long as the range seems, once the carriers start shooting, they can hit from up to 13 range away. And the EMPs have been really good. Like maybe now you can try to jump on them, but target firing down
a lot of
everyone is going to be hard.
Yeah, that is a lot of Vikings. However, but the Phoenix still putting in work as the Vikings retreat back to the Marine, but the Marines are going to offer no reliable shelter, as there is way too many carriers for them to deal with all the interceptors. Now it's going to become a little bit of a base trade with MarineLorD nuking one side of the map and taking down another base. I mean, this is still a very, very scary army for Goblin, Nate. But MarineLorD is securing himself another huge economic lead.
Yeah, no, this was just fantastically played by Goblin, and MarineLorD fell into the trap of just building way too many Vikings. You know, I look at the units lost tab. It's 29 Vikings. 1 carrier has died this game. Like, they just don't have the durability to actually push through and stand in a fight with all those interceptors. You need the mega chonkers. You need to have like almost as many. Usually you need a few more battle cruisers than your opponent has carriers to tackle that. Because everything else that I talked about is all, I mean, like, not to call myself a prophet here, but he doesn't have any medevacs to heal those bio units very much so either. So all these Terran, all these Marines are at red health as these carriers show up, light them up with the interceptors. The Vikings have a hard time getting away from the Phoenix, so they're going to get chased down. The carriers mostly still alive. The nukes are very nice, but MarineLorD needs to be able to keep pushing Goblin home, or he's going to make a big attack. And if these carriers get to the production, that's going to be game over. Beautiful.
Yeah, at the same time, MarineLorD is still doubling, sometimes tripling the income of his opponent. I mean, if we look at the map, it looks very good for MarineLorD, but if we look at the armies, it looks very good for Goblin, and that's kind of the story of this game. Will Goblin be able to capitalize? I feel like he has to do something. There's so much invested into infrastructure from MarineLorD, as we see here in all of those ghost academies for the nukes as well, Nate.
Yeah, that's another thing though. You got to be careful as well, because the ghost academies with those nukes, that's another great way to burn through your bank. You have to make sure that you're being efficient. You have to make sure that you're not kind of leaving them at risk. And in this type of spot, you can see that the Phoenix don't do great versus the BCs, but with a couple Stalkers warped in there, it's still quite hard. The battlecruisers are going to go up front, though. He's going to try and dive on this with the Vikings. The supporting units are gone. The Vikings may finally be able to get some big damage off, and they do, Cat.
This is great. Yeah, this is a great trade for MarineLorD finally, as he's pushing back the army of Goblin. Oh, this was really, really good. There is so many Vikings now. They're nearly just two-shotting the battle cruisers. The Phoenix is not really able to respond here, Nate. And now Goblin, how do you recover from this? I don't know that you can.
It's hard, because now the rest of the supporting cast shows up again, and that, you know, the Vikings, they have a hard time getting through when there's a lot of stuff there and there's a lot of units out. And he did a really good job of not just teleporting the battle cruisers back, but he puts them in front of the Vikings. Those BCs at level 2 upgrades, which is what he has. He has level 2 armor. The battle cruiser has 5 armor. The Viking only has 2. It doesn't start with any, so you don't want them to be the units getting hit. Now, of course, he did lose all the battle cruisers, so you have to rebuild that count up. You need to have those big tanky boys up front. The Vikings are just a little bit too flimsy to be your soap in that fight, and this is where it gets a little bit tough too. He's going to be pushing forward once again. I feel like Goblin's overextended pretty hard here, though. He's gotten rid of almost all of his army. Nice disruptor shot, but the Cats, he's still down like 70 supply.
Yeah, I don't hate that he's trying to make something happen now, because he must recognize that, you know, every second is a good second for MarineLorD here. He has the map, he has the economic lead. So Goblin trying to do what he can. I think this is his last stand, as additional mules are going to drop in a non... So I think well done by MarineLorD overall, choosing his strategy. And Goblin's now going to have to adapt anyhow. Here is, in the top left-hand side of the map, the red Terran player, MarineLorD.
And his opponent in the southeast, representing Team Rotterdam, he is Goblin.
Yes, indeed. I think that in general, blocks have gotten very, very strong over time. Like in the same fashion as pylon blocks even were not common for the longest time against Zerg. And over the last 6 years or so, obviously, like when I say the longest time, I mean like the first 4 years of Starcraft or 5, right? But at some point, they just start being the norm. Hatchery blocks are much more common today, certainly, than when I was playing. I felt like there wasn't very many people doing stuff like that, but now we see just about everyone hatchery blocking Protoss, and often now, like we lately just saw Serral and Solier as well, displaying that against Terran. It's something that I've liked for a while, Nate, as you well know.
Yeah. Well, Kat, I think if there's a reason why you and I gel very well together, it's because we both kind of like the out of left field things. We like variety. We like seeing people kind of workshop this game, because at the end of the day, it is a strategy game, and as angry as it can make you, there's a lot of good things that people still haven't done yet that we just don't even know about yet. 4 probes picked off though with this, just 2 Hellions is actually, that's a phenomenal grab.
Yes, indeed, Nate. I completely agree. And there's always been that saying of, if it's good, why isn't everyone doing it? And it's like, you know, it's a complex game. There's a lot to do, and really variety is so important too, right? Like now we see players mixing up their style so that they can't be predicted, because they identify that there is a big disadvantage in just playing the same way every game. If their opponent knows it, they can abuse it. We saw that from MarineLorD, and we're seeing it again as 2 of those mines will catch those Phoenixes. I mean, that's an adaptation to Phoenix play.
Oh yeah. And it's a great way to punish this style of play, because those Phoenix are extremely expensive. They are not easy to replace. They build fast, sure, but their cost per build time is it's actually one of the highest in the game. It's not cheap to just pump those out. So taking out any of that momentum early on is definitely nice. And actually, going back to what you said, yeah, it's like, how many people out there that are like, there's a right way to play StarCraft? How many people do you think would change their tune if you're like, would you like to have all the money that Bly has made in his career? Because it's not a small amount. And that's,
not at all.
He certainly has never been one to play the game the quote unquote correct way.
Yeah, absolutely not. And now if we see at the highest level, we don't even need to rely on players like Bly to make this argument, because now we see Serral and Raynor and the best players in the world. And Korea has always done it, really, right? Like Korea has always been aggressive, and Korea has always mixed things up, because they understand this idea and these precepts ever since Brood War, because they have been playing professionally for something like 20 years now.
Yeah. And Phoenix gonna try to poke a few more of the Marines, and just getting one. I was gonna say, if you lose a Phoenix doing that, it turns into a very big like head scratcher moment for me. But if he can do this without actually taking real damage or losing anything, more power to you. You've got a big attack coming. Charge is only just about to finish. There are 3 Zealots on the map right now against 20 Marines.
Oh, and the Widowmine drop as well in the main. There is another one headed into the natural, but the Phoenix are going to be there to intercept, so that one will not unload. The shield battery finishes right on time, and it is going to save the day for Goblin. A very narrow defense, but a good defense no less.
A good hold there. I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, he's got 20 Marines, 2 medevacs. There's 3 Zealots. Okay, a 4th one, and then all right, Guardian Shield plus the overcharged battery. Yeah, that's why it's in the game. So Protoss players are allowed to expand. I feel you on that.
Yeah, when that shield battery finished, it was lights out for the attack from Marine.
Rev up those fryers.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, Goblin has done a good job of stabilizing, seeing as he lost those first 2 Phoenix. They are snowbally units. Good job keeping this one alive, and it's also going to feed him information as to what's going on. Is he going to be able to react in time? The Phoenix are pulling back as fast as possible, and they're fast units, but not instantaneous, Nate.
No, sadly they don't have the ability to just straight up teleport. And the other downside to this that we haven't had like a huge discussion about either is just that with the way that those mines have been too, you have to worry about making sure you have your detection there every time that you're going to be dealing with them, because eventually there is going to be an armory in place. I'm kind of surprised actually that MarineLorD hasn't already tried to squeeze the armory out, because he has +1 attack, and if he's going to use Widow Mines like against a Stargate player, like the Robo's only just started, cats. You know what I mean? Like there's no real stable detection of that was even been possible for Goblin. A lot of these mines could have stayed alive if he had squeezed an armory out at any point in this game.
Oh, lovely move here by Goblin. As he shoves just 3 Zealots to the mineral line while he engages the rest of the army, and it's going to be a very good engagement here. Now the medevac's also exposed, Nate. Very, very nice job for Goblin. Again, those 3 Zealots, really crucial as they have taken down 14 SCVs.
That's a really, 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 really nice maneuver. As you pointed out, just moving a couple of the Zealots to the mineral line, recognizing, okay, I can't kill the army, but if I trade away a bunch of what I do have, then those Zealots will get at least enough value to make me not feel bad about it. And at the end of the day, 46 SCVs to 62 probes, definitely a nice thing, nice position to be in for Goblin, as MarineLorD's going to unburrow his mines and get ready to move out again. I'm just going to say it one more time. We don't have more than 1 observer. The first one just came on the map. There's an opportunity to punish moving these Phoenix all over the place without losing anything if you just squeeze that armory out, you know? Even if you want to just do a 3-base all in, it's almost, I don't know. Maybe I'm just harping on this too much, but I feel like the mines could have gotten so much more done in this game.
Yeah, maybe so. The Phoenix, I feel like they are kind of signaling to MarineLorD just how undefended or underprepared Goblin might feel. Because they could have very well just jumped into the natural and picked up like another 12 SCVs or something of the sorts. Instead, they are going to pull back and make sure that there is no doom drop or anything like that happening again. MarineLorD has done a good job, Nate, of staying out on the map and being consistently aggressive while trying to look for these economic edges, but it's not working nearly as well as it did last time around.
Yeah. Mine gets a nice little pot shut off. The armory does start up, so... That's something that's important, though, because he's also putting some of these observers. I know earlier it was in the little siege mode thing, so it won't just come over to help if it has to. It's scary to attack into this, though. There's so many zealots. He's just going to force them to lift up, and then the Phoenix are going to kill everything, right? I feel like I'm seeing the future right now. I'm having a vision, cats.
All right, let's see what happens here as the mines are preset in the back. He wants to be able to run back to those. The zealots, however, are diverted with the attack at the north. This might be go time for MarineLorD. However, 2 Colossi are going to show up in perfect timing here to defend for Goblins.
Okay, I was going to say, if everything had dived on that main army, I would be like, there's no way he's going to get through. Are you kidding?
Oh, no.
Dude's got like 8 Phoenix right there. Yeah, no, you're going to have to unload everything and run away. But now, see, look, he kills the Marines. There's hardly any Marines.
There is no Marines left, actually, and this is really, really good on the side of Goblin, who is going to push onto this army. Mostly Marauders, though, so the Colossus actually have to be very, very careful, and they can't be lifted up to be safe. That is so fun.
That's some heavy lifting right there. Well, we can definitely say Goblin's getting his his tries and his biceps worked out today. That's for sure.
No doubt about that one. All right, on the upgrade front, MarineLorD has kept up. That armory finished as well as for the mines for the upgrade, so he has started that 2-2. And Goblin, with a sizable number of Colossus, you'd like to see maybe a little bit of different units being produced now for the Robo, as we see a War Prism and more observers that you were pointing were at a little bit of a deficit before. MarineLorD with another big push, but this is starting to feel like overextending a bit, right?
Yeah, when you step this far forward, the biggest problem is there is no way to really like pull out from this type of attack because the Phoenix are so fast and there's so many zealots, right? It's using those 2 units together to say zealots will chase you on the ground. These mines get some nice shots. 13 probes blown up, but yeah, that's the most important thing is you're never gonna have a lot of medevacs when you do this because every time you move out, you are almost guaranteed to lose all of them as soon as you start retreating.
Yeah, the strange thing for me is he knows what the army on the side of Goblin is. So, I mean, at the point at which you see already 2 Colossi and that many Phoenix and mostly just charge slots and you're mostly out of mines and you're dropping the ones that you have, maybe not the best idea to move out, right? Like, it's going to be so difficult and so easy to get punished by an army composition like this. And now it's Goblin on the offense. Sure, he lost some workers, but I don't think he cares much, Nate.
No, I don't think so at all. He's been in a nice spot. And MarineLorD got his SCV count back up, and he does have that 4th base mining, so it does give me a couple of vibes that are similar to the last map, Cats, where it's not like MarineLorD's been throwing units away and doing some 3-base all-in. He has been working a bit on that economy, but he needs to be able to stop this siege up outside of his base. 2 Colossi very low, gets another one, and the 3rd one is still kicking, going in and out of the prism. 5 Marauders lifted into the air. That's definitely one way to keep your power tech units alive.
Yeah, this was actually a much better engagement for MarineLorD than I was anticipating he could get. I think part of it, a great part of it, was the Phoenix being out of position and 2 of those Colossi falling very quickly here. So well done by him with the spreads. It's, of course, maybe the most wide open area on the map. So definitely a good position for Bio to fan out and do whatever they can to kill the opposition.
Yeah, and there's one other thing I would like to point out as well. There are no armor upgrades for the Protoss. It's a glass cannon build. One of the reasons why that fight looks so ugly is you might say, oh yeah, charge lots. When you build 20 of them, they're great. The Marines have +2 attack. The Zealots have no armor upgrades. They actually melt the Zealots like a hot knife through butter. It's a lot easier for MarineLorD to take these fights as long as he doesn't get completely caught off guard. And that's why this game looks so scrappy, because it's Goblin with a lot of very expensive, powerful units. And then it's MarineLorD with like, well, you don't have armor upgrades. So if I can get in the right spot, I can kill you.
Yeah, but the Phoenix are in position for this drop, and actually Goblin's gonna get right behind and under the army as it drops out. This is an ideal case scenario for the Croatian to try and engage on this move. I mean, MarineLorD, I feel like, has played this hand a few times too many this game, and Goblin very aware of the possibility.
This is like the third time he's tried to doom drop the guy that never stops building Phoenix.
Yeah, and that always has the Phoenix patrolling there by default.
I feel like I'm watching Rotterdam stream where he's like, I don't know why this guy keeps trying to drop me. He's like, all I build is Phoenix. I'm like, yeah, no, that's pretty much it. He's gonna try to go up the ramp, and in an actual like forced fight, the Colossi will kill a lot of stuff, but all the meat underneath dies very quickly to these well upgraded Marines and Marauders.
Yeah, and there's not very much meat, and once that's gone, it's very easy, and the Colossi seem very flimsy, right? Their greatest ability is that glass cannon nest that you were talking about, where they can stand way behind the army and do their damage as a sort of a siege unit of sorts.
Yeah. So this game, at the end of all of it, just trying to take stock of the situation. It's 4 base for 4 base. The 5th is a little over halfway done for Goblin, and Cats, he is starting up another Stargate. There's no fleet beacon this time, at least not yet, but I have to ask myself if that is something that he's going to leave on the table or not. I guess he just says, screw it. Carriers didn't work, so let's just go for the Wings of Liberty number of Colossi.
yeah, that's the other thing, right? There's so many of these Colossi, and I was gonna say maybe this is okay in so long as there's no ghosts, because the Archons can serve as a chunky anchor on the low ground, but those are gonna disappear very quickly if the EMPs are good. So Goblin has to be very, very careful, and all of these Phoenix are also gonna get EMP, 2 of them taken down right away.
Very nice grab there. The awareness on the map by MarineLorD, very, very, very good. And the whole point of the way that this style is set up for Goblin is it's an overload, right? Of what the Vikings would want to deal with. Because you're like, oh, yes, well, you know, if you have like 9 Vikings, you can 2-shot a Colossus. But when your opponent has 9 Colossi, that's not anywhere near enough to actually kill them fast enough. Like, you need to be one-shotting 2 of these Colossi at the same time to win a big fight, like head-to-head if you're just standing there. Or you try to shave off from a distance, but, you know, then you're running the risk of possibly losing a few of your Vikings to those Phoenix.
This looks like a massive army. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's actually any ghosts remaining. Oh, yeah, there's 3 in the back. They're gonna EMP a bunch, but actually missing mostly the Archons, which are the units that you want to get. And it looks like Goblin is ready to take an engagement here onto the army of MarineLorD. It's fanned out, but it may not be enough. The Colossus, however, are now exposed as all the meat is gone, Nate.
That's right. The meat is gone. 2 Colossi were shooting at the orbital.